Right. What can I do today? You want to do some interviewing or something? Is that right?
Exactly. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, for joining us. We're looking forward to having you as a speaker at our return to physical conferences for our Savant e-commerce series. And we have a few questions for you we want to ask you.
My pleasure, Lucas.
As chairman of Mister Spex, you, of course, led the transformation of the company from a online pure player to an omnichannel business with now more than 40 stores all over Europe. How has the pandemic affected your dedication to the omnichannel business model, with many people saying that they do not intend to go back into stores and to remain online purchasing only?
Well, I think it's reconfirmed our belief that actually you need to be omni-channel because at the end of the day you need to follow the customer, and if the digital world has done anything compared to the physical world, it's what it has done is it's put the consumer, the customer, in control. In the old days when you went to a shop. When you wanted to buy something, you had to go to a store, and now the customer expects and gets 24/7 shopping, if you like, via the internet. So they are very much in control about when they shop and where they want it delivered, and etc. etc. So I think it's important to have both because some channels will appeal to some people more than others. But at the same time, what it's also done, the pandemic's also done, is actually converted a lot of people who previously maybe avoided going using the digital channel because they've had no choice. It's actually introduced online shopping to them for the first time. So I think that's why the digital world has been a beneficiary of this, you might say.
But you, in general, stay hopeful that, convinced that the omnichannel business model is going to be still the best path going forward for companies.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. But in general, also, we have noticed that companies that have, of course, Mister Spex started out as an online pure player. Other companies are more traditional. They maybe had very little experience in e-commerce. But digital first companies, much like Mister Spex, I believe that way better through the pandemic than more traditional companies. Do you think this has accelerated the speed at which traditional companies need to adapt, need to digitize, and get ready for the new century, so to speak, of e-commerce?
Yes, definitely. I think we were on that path before. It's pretty rare in this day and age to find, if you look at retail, somebody who doesn't have a trading website, as it were. I think Primark in fashion might be one of the very few, but they are definitely the exception. And I think, again, when you think of the nature of the people who are founding these businesses and starting these business up, they're sort of 20, 30-year-olds. They're from the generation who've sort of grown up with the internet, and it's been their sort of their lifeblood, if you like. So there's every reason why that's where they're going to at least start.
Yeah, these digital natives, as people like to call them, the young people.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember growing up, and all we could do on the internet was maybe look up whether the store even has what we were looking for before we had to go there and buy everything. But of course, young people nowadays, they see something on TikTok, follow the link that came with the TikTok to the website. They check out everything, then go to the store and have a look at whether they like it, and then finally order it online in like a big path towards purchase.
And it's that immediacy, before, if you read about, pre the internet, if you read about something in a fashion magazine, some hot new brand or fantastic new dress or whatever it happened to be that you read about, you had to wait until a local store stocked it, or they opened or they had it, or to check whether they had a store near you. And now, as you've just described in your question, you can do all the research online, find the item, and actually you'd be pretty surprised if you then couldn't go to a website and buy it there and then. And this immediacy, which has obviously fueled things like the whole fast fashion surgeons. This immediacy, the consumers love, because they haven't got to wait, and they haven't got to get, rush off to a high street on a Saturday when they've got other stuff going on to look for it. They can just do it there and then on the website. Or rather on their phones, maybe I should say.
At the conference, you will be joining our international expansion roundtable panel discussion. And for that, I did a little research, and I noticed that Mister Spex just in the last few months expanded to 2 new countries, to Austria and Sweden, I believe.
Correct.
It drives you to expand, to go to these new countries when we're still kind of in the throes of this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about eyewear, unless you're buying, just a pair of fashion sunglasses, as it were, the thing about eyewear is that, if you're wearing prescription glasses like you and I, you need your current prescription. So, if your eyesight changes and the specification of your prescription changes, you need to go and get a new set of glasses. So it's an essential commodity. I mean, it is at one level historically it was a fashion. Sorry, it was a healthcare item, really. And this is where I think Mister Spex is really interesting, because they're coming to the business of eyewear with a fashion perspective, and that's where the consumer is. Most consumers now have several pairs of glasses, and they have different colors, go different outfits, or different situations or whatever, and it has become a part of that kind of fashion offer.
As a lifelong wearer of glasses, I can confirm that.
So how many pairs do you have, Lucas?
Personally, I own 3, but one of these is one of those sunglasses that have my
prescription in it.
My prescription in them.
Yeah.
But technically, it's only 2, but yeah, 3 with that.
That's right. Well, you should come and shop on Mister Spex, get some more then.
I will do that. Speaking of more generally, do you think retailers looking for new customers who are eyeing new markets, do you think they should wait until the crises are over, the pandemic, or until Brexit is better understood, better used? Or do you think now is the time really to keep going, to keep expanding?
I think that's a very interesting question. I mean, for not for all retailers, but for some retailers, the pandemic has been, just a kind of, how can I survive, or even worse than that, will I actually survive? And I think therefore people have been very, very focused on that. I think that you have to try and, you may not be able to advance on all fronts, but I think you do have to consider all fronts, because retail, as ever, is a fiercely competitive business. The internet has the digital channel has made it easier for people to compete with one another and start up. And so you do have to be, alive, to the whole sort of customer base, if you like. But it may well be that, if your resources are limited, and for a number of people it is, you do have to have a focus on certain things. But it just depends where you are. If you take a Mister Spex, we're a young company. We've got great ambition with the IPO. We've got the finance to grow, and we will grow, and we will grow physical stores, whilst at the same time making sure that the the digital offering is the best of breed as well.
We have, of course, been chairman for many popular brands, especially popular British brands. I would like to know your opinion on whether, despite all the current problems between the EU and between the United Kingdom, do you think it's still the best place for expansion for British companies, for internationalization?
Yeah, I mean, I am unashamedly not a fan of Brexit, I have to say. I think it is the most awful thing that is one of the most awful things happened in my lifetime, quite frankly. And my only solace is, I think, that when my children's generation get old enough, if it hasn't happened already, they will reverse that decision, I hope. But anyway, leaving Brexit aside, no, I mean the UK is still a good place to do business. I mean, obviously, whatever conditions are put on exports from out of the UK into the EU will affect the process and all the rest of it. But I think that it's sufficiently important that not just for many companies like ASOS, for example, that there will be a mechanism found that makes that hopefully as seamless as possible. So I think now I wouldn't put a downer on the UK as a place to do business, but certainly Brexit is something that does not help us.
Well, it's definitely hard to predict how exactly the development and point Brexit are going to go forward with recent news, but this is not a political conference.
No, I know.
Yeah. But one more thing that I'm curious about, I believe Mister Spex originally started out as a marketplace for glasses, where third-party vendors were able to sell their glasses, and then later on you moved into producing your own glasses. Do you think marketplaces are a good path for companies to get a foot into the water to expand to new markets?
Yes, I mean, I don't know what the degree to which, I mean, I wasn't there at the start of Mister Spex. I had been there 7 years, and when I joined, they were just at that point where, you're right, they'd been selling other people's brands, as it were, and they started to sell some of their own branded glasses, and I think today 10 to 15% or so of the company's sales come from own label products, as it were. I think it's back to this, thing about the internet. Providing you with this fantastic choice. If you go to a store, because of the walls, there is always a limit to how much you can see. Whereas actually online, it's almost infinite. The choice is almost infinite. And I think the consumer actually really likes that. I mean, not all consumers like it, but many consumers do like it. And with the various filters and with the way in which scrolling now works on good websites, I mean, you can view probably 200 frames of glasses far more quickly online than you would ever see them in a store. And you can sort of narrow your choice down, and you can go back and all the rest of it. So I think that having both options, helps Mister Spex and its customers.
I would be, of course, remiss if I didn't ask about the elephant in the room that every single business call that I'm doing. What would you say that you personally, or in your capacity as chairman, you have learned from the past year, from the pandemic? Something that you didn't expect before, or that you weren't sure about how it would develop?
Well, I think everybody's been surprised at how long this has gone on for. And in all honesty, I think actually we don't quite know how the recovery will work. I mean, because it has gone on for so long, and it's been, it has been worldwide, and we've not been able to travel internationally and all of that stuff. A lot of people are spooked. And, I see it in the UK, people are sort of reluctant to go on public transport. They're avoiding big city centres, they're shopping much more locally and all of that. And I never thought I would sort of see that, because actually I'm somebody who loves to travel, and I love the international side, both personally and professionally, in terms of going to different countries. So I think that the thing we're still yet to see, obviously, is how we come out of this, and the time that it will take. So a lot of people have been, as I say, spooked by it. And I think that one of the things that we all need to be very sensitive to is, both for our customers and our employees, how that has affected them mentally. And that you can't be draconian about this and say, right, you now have to come back to the office or whatever. We have to coax people back. I'm a great advocate of people being with other people, when they work in teams and all the rest of it. I think that whilst technology can enable you to work from home, it's ideal maybe for part of the week, but not for all of the week. We were designed to be with one another, and one of the wonderful things about retail is, very often, very many of the people, they're very sociable. They're used to dealing with customers. They're quite outgoing. There is a social side to work, and being in the office, or being in a place of work, that I think is really important.
You're certainly right about employees and getting them back into the office. I like that you mentioned also that the customers themselves have changed. Do you think the ways that they had to adapt to the pandemic, whether these changes will persist, or will people go for the most part back to dealing with businesses to purchasing stuff? Will they go back to how it was beforehand?
No, I'm not sure it will go back to how it was before, because I think that as I said, as I've said in one of your earlier questions, you know, I very much see that, you know, there's a bunch of people that have discovered online shopping, for example, for the first time, and hopefully have had a good experience, and, you know, they're now in that habit, as it were. So I think that's true. And I think that, you know, irrespective of, people like me who always prefer to be with people in an office and all the rest of it, I can, you know, people will be splitting their week 1 to 4 or 2 to 5, home to office or whatever. And there is going to be more of that. So I think there is definitely going to be a change. There has been a change, and I think some of that will be permanent.
Okay. And finally, you've kindly attended our events in the past, the Savant e-commerce conferences. Could you give us a quick information what you are most looking forward to do at the conference? And why do you think other e-commerce executives should attend the event as well?
Well, I think two things really. I mean, from my personal perspective, I always enjoy these sorts of things because, dare I say, it exposes me to a whole bunch of, you know, inevitably rather younger than me people who are in this ecom world, and that I always find, you know, A, very interesting, and B, very exciting. Really, it's quite it's a stimulating thing to have. And then I think for people to attend it is really good because, and I've only really learnt this as I've got older, you know, the whole networking thing and people that you know and exchanging ideas, it's really, really important. And as you get older, it is really quite surprising how important it is to have built a network in terms of creating, you know, further opportunities for you, you know, as you progress your career.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter.
It's a pleasure.